Welcome back to Talk of the Town on 99.7 and 1450 WHTC, on WHTC.com, and on the WHTC app for your smartphone. Once again, here's your host, Gary Stevens.
Welcome back to Talk of the Town for this Wednesday, December 20th. Once a month, we get an update from the two men who are the county clerks in our area. On the third Friday of the month, we chat with Allegan County Clerk and Register of Deeds Bob Janetsky, usually on the third Wednesday of the month, and today being the third Wednesday of the month, we chat with Ottawa County Clerk and Register of Deeds, Justin Roebuck. Good morning, Justin.
It's good to be here, Gary.
Glad you are with us.
Merry Christmas to you.
Merry Christmas to you and your family and everyone at the Clerk and Register of Deeds office, and hopefully a happy and safe holiday weekend and a good 2024. Yeah. After what we've gone through in 2023, read between the lines as you wish. Let's hope 2024 is a little better.
It'll be a busy year, that's for sure.
If you have a question for for Ottawa County Clerk and Register of Deeds, Bob, if you had a question for Bob, you're too late. If you have a question for Justin, you're
Bob's
right
a good
on time.
friend. I'll try to take a question for him.
No, don't need to. He's got enough on his plate anyway with litigation and stuff like that. 616-395-1450. 616-395-1450. Well, you had to discharge one of your duties per state law. An elected official outside of a clerk or a prosecutor that needs to have a position filled has to go through a selection committee comprising of the county clerk as well as the county prosecutor and the chief probate judge. And you, Mark Vine, and Lee Fisher had to do that to get a new treasurer for Ottawa County, and the announcement was made yesterday.
Yeah, correct. It's one of those probably little-known duties, right? The role of the county clerk and the county prosecutor and the chief probate judge. But in the event of a vacancy, we are required by the statute to appoint. And Amanda Price is retiring at the end of this year. December 31 is her last day as our county treasurer. And so our appointment committee met with a number of candidates. We had over 20 total applicants. We interviewed 8 candidates last week. Pretty extensive interview process where we requested a bunch of materials and letters of reference and resumes and so forth, and sat down in a public meeting, of course, to conduct those interviews. Everything that we do is in public meeting, so including our discussion and deliberation on who we choose. And we have appointed Cheryl Clerk, who is the chief deputy treasurer, and she's been in the treasurer's office for a number of years now. She's served as chief deputy since 2008. And, my take on it is if Ottawa County voters have been happy with the services they've received from the treasurer over the past several election cycles, Cheryl is absolutely in part to thank for that and her leadership in the treasurer's office. And, she's very qualified. She's served as a local elected official before her tenure in the treasurer's office, as well as the treasurer of Robinson Township. And we're just really happy to have her on board and getting through this next year to finish out Amanda Price's term.
Qualifications is one thing. A seamless transition might be another factor as well.
Absolutely. I mean, I think, it's eminently helpful to have somebody who can actually do the job on day one and who can lead the staff well. I think she has the support and backing of her team at the treasurer's office. Obviously, this is a critical role for the stability of the county and our funds, and really an important job. And we honestly had some really great applicants. And I think that is a great problem to have when you have to choose between several really I think qualified folks, but obviously Cheryl rose to the top for the very fact that she's just the knowledge and experience level that she has. No one else could quite compare with that. So we're happy to have her as our next treasurer beginning in January.
But it will be for a very limited time because the term is only to finish the term of Amanda Price, which would be at the end of 2024.
Correct. And obviously that position is on the ballot in August, of course, for the primary, and then in November of 2024. And so, my understanding is that that Chief Deputy Clerk does intend to run for the position. But I think, no matter who runs next year, obviously the voters will ultimately decide who they want to fill the role as treasurer for the 4-year term.
Since the last time we chatted, Justin, and by the way, if you have a question for Justin Roebuck, 616-395-1450, 616-395-1450. Speaking about the August 2024 primary, since the last time we chatted, Justin, and you mentioned the fact that you wish to seek re-election, and Steve Kempker has also made his intentions known to seek re-election. We have heard, of course, from Lee Fisher that he will retire, but will stay on through the end of his term, which is through the end of 2024. But since the last time we chatted, we now have a contested Republican primary for prosecutor, and who knows whether or not we might have a contested primary for county treasurer.
Sure.
And possibly a contested primary for county clerk. We don't know yet.
Sure.
But what deadlines are there for those who wish to run in contested primary seat?
Yeah, the filing deadline for that, for all positions that are on the ballot in a primary race for the August election next year, the filing deadline is April 24 at 4 p.m. So plenty of time still to see how a lot of these races around the county play out. We certainly have a lot of elected officials. Obviously, the focus is primarily on the presidential race in a presidential election year, but we can't forget that we have, just within our county, we have 17 townships. All of those offices are up for election. Of course, the county commission.
And the same deadline for all of those, or
Correct.
Is it a deadline for a partisan primary and maybe a different one for a nonpartisan?
Yes, you're right. So in a nonpartisan office, so all of the township level offices, all of the county level offices are actually considered partisan positions, which is interesting. But the process there is that candidates would file in that April deadline, the April 24 deadline, and then run for the nomination, which happens in August. So the two top political parties who receive the most votes, for president of the United States, which happen to be the Republican and Democratic parties, they choose their nominees on that August ballot, and then those nominees go on to the November election. So if you wanted to run completely non-party affiliated, there's actually a process to do that requires petitioning, and without party affiliation, your deadline would be July. So there's a July deadline for that November election.
Same for the judges as well?
Yeah, correct. The judges follow a little bit of a different schedule. The filing dates and deadlines are kind of all over the map for different things. The judges have a March. There's a March deadline for non-incumbent judges, and then there's an early April deadline for the incumbent judges. Even though, again, depending on the race, so obviously that's a nonpartisan position. However, if there are, depending on the number of people running, there may be a primary to narrow down the field of candidates before the November.
Good morning. You're on the line with Ottawa County Clerk Justin Roebuck.
Yeah, my aunt passed away a few years ago, but she was born in Allegan, but she lived in Holland over 50 years, but I still had to go to Allegan to get her death certificate.
Death certificate's question whether or not it goes to Ottawa because it's the city of Holland, or because it was an Allegan birth, it goes down there.
So a death certificate actually is created and held in the county where the person passes away. So if, in this case, if your aunt was deceased in Ottawa County, if that is where she passed away, then we would have her birth record, or her death record, excuse me.
Yeah, go ahead.
Ottawa Avenue.
Okay, so it's north of 32nd or south of 32nd?
I think it's south.
Okay, south of 32nd. Is
That's
that
in
still
Allegan County?
That would definitely be Allegan, even though it's the city of Holland, right?
Yeah, correct. Yep. So the death records follow the county. and not the
She
not the
lived
city.
past
Yeah.
where Howland Hitch used to be. She used to live past Howland Hitch.
Okay, so yeah, it would probably be Allegan then.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very
Yeah,
much for the
thanks
call.
for that
That's one of the
question.
times when I know a lot of things that are happening in the city of Holland,
Yeah.
sort of defaults to Ottawa. But
Yeah.
in this case, because of the 32nd Street demarcation between Ottawa and Allegan, that becomes important in that regard.
Correct. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, we the city has one district court, that shares. So even if you're in Allegan County on the Allegan in the Holland City in the Allegan County side, it still pertains to the district court that is here, of course, the 58th District Court. But in this case, this is a county line situation where the death record would actually go to the county and where the person was deceased.
616-395-1450, 616-395-1450. Justin, that call does bring something that at times we need to bring up from time to time about making sure when somebody does pass that the proper paperwork is done to remove someone from the voter rolls and other legal things.
Right.
Obviously, a death certificate helps, but explain a little bit about when a death certificate is issued. Does it automatically get registered with your office for voting and the like, or if a family member needs to take that death certificate from one office and go to another to discharge someone from the rolls?
No, that's a great question. Certainly a question that we get relatively often on the voting side of things. So folks are removed from the voter rolls in three ways when they are deceased. The primary way, or the stopgap measure, is this connection with the Social Security file and the Secretary of State's office. So on a monthly basis, the Social Security file is compared with the Secretary of State's voter registration database across the state of Michigan, and that information is connected, and then any deceased voter is removed from the Michigan voter rolls that way. However, in my office and in every county in the state of Michigan, when we process a death record, we are automatically flagging those records in the qualified voter file already. And so that's really sort of the first layer now of protection that we have in terms of removing deceased voters from the rolls, because we obviously receive the death certificate before anyone, before the state agencies receive the death record. We are the recipient of that record, and we, of course, hold the record. And so when someone passes away in Ottawa County, we are automatically checking that death certificate against the voter registration rolls and flagging those for removal. The challenge for us becomes cross-county. So in an example where someone may pass away in Ottawa County, but perhaps as a resident or lives elsewhere in the state, we cannot immediately remove that person from the rolls because we only have control over our voter registration. So we send notification to the county where they are registered that they are deceased. So there's a communication going on constantly between Michigan's 83 counties in terms of deceased voters. But then the stopgap ultimately is that Social Security record as well.
When it becomes an interstate matter, does it go to the Secretary of State's office in Lansing?
Well, that is a great question. And one of the ways that we have protection against that process, really our elections are very decentralized, and there is no official government entity that does cross-state voter registration efforts or voter roll efforts. So Michigan is a part of a system called ERIC, and it is a nonpartisan separate organization that states belong to. It's an acronym, ERIC, the Electronic Information and Registration Center. And using this partnership, we are comparing the death records of other states. When someone moves, for example, if you move to Florida, tomorrow, and did not update your voter registration rolls, when you eventually change your driver's license or register to vote in the state of Florida, that pings the ERIC system and actually removes you from the rolls here in Michigan. And so that's something that the government doesn't do, but there are essentially a consortium of states that have organized for that effort.
I will freely admit that this next question comes from someone who has not had to deal with end-of-life situations. Normally, if a loved one passes away, a lot of the tough decisions dealing with the disposition of one person's not just identity, but matters has to be taken up, and you have to sort of overcome the grieving process. You got things to have to do.
Yeah.
But with that ignorance on my part, if someone does a lot of what the paperwork that deals with voter registration and all that, does that get done by the funeral home director, or is that something that a family member has to fight over the grief and do the paperwork?
No, I mean, we make every possible effort to make it as easy as possible on our families. And that is something that my office is actually required to do by law, and that we do. So the funeral directors don't have to worry about the voter registration piece. We actually do that directly. And so that is not something that a family member would have to worry about. And you could certainly call and check and verify that the loved one has come off the voter rolls. We answer a lot of those calls.
Or title rolls, too. Or is that something entirely different?
Yeah. I mean, if you own property, that is definitely, unfortunately, that is something that has to happen through, either through probate court or, through wills or trusts or, those kinds of things.
And that's something we need to discuss with our legal experts, Ken Bazicki and Nathan Box, when we have the Ask the Attorney segments on Talk of the Town on the second Friday of the month. And it's not something for the county clerk, but again, registration, identification, those matters.
Yeah.
And again, pardon my ignorance, folks, but I'm going to ask it anyway. I sometimes go where others fear to tread. Who issues death certificates?
It is the county. It's the county clerk.
Okay.
Yep. So my office issues a death record. So we coordinate, obviously, with the hospitals and the medical examiner for the county, and they sign off on those records. And then ultimately they are filed with our office, and I have to sign those records, and then those get transferred to the state as well.
Okay.
But we are actually
obviously
the holder of the
birth
record.
certificates,
Right.
and death certificates.
Right.
The beginning and the end of the line is Justin Roebuck. I don't want to.
We like the birth and the marriage a lot better, but we certainly want to help our families through the death records too.
No. Don't you dare out there think that I'm going to put any biblical alpha and omega on this. No.
It's way above my pay grade.
One of the things that was on the agenda for the county clerk's office in 2023 was establishing polling places for early voting in 2024. Dare I say mission accomplished, Justin?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a pretty exciting thing to check off our list in terms of the establishment of those polling locations. So we are officially mailing every registered voter household in Ottawa County in the next month. That's required by statute to notify our voters of where these locations are. But we have 4 locations that are going to be centrally located, conveniently located for our voters, where any voter in Ottawa County can walk into any of these 4 vote centers and cast a ballot in the state and federal elections that are happening next year. Obviously, the first one being February in the presidential preference primary. So here in the Holland area, we are actually at the James Street complex where the county buildings are. So if you're familiar with that corridor right across the street from Brand's Steakhouse is the MDHHS building. So the state of Michigan leases some space from the county in that complex. And we are actually in that building, a large conference room there, going to be utilized for early voting. And then we're utilizing our local jurisdictions for the other locations. We're going to be in Grand Haven Township at the Township Hall in Grand Haven, in Polkton Township, which is a Coopersville area, right off of the highway, convenient location off of 96 there in Coopersville, and then the Georgetown Township Hall. So those 4 locations are going to be where voters can participate all year long in our early voting process, and we're really excited to roll that out.
The important thing is, even if you live, say, over in beautiful downtown Jenison, you can cast an early ballot over on James Street.
That is correct. So if you live in Georgetown and you work in Holland, or you're going out for dinner in Holland, and it's just an easy and convenient stop for you, you can actually vote here at that vote center. And we have, the process is interconnected. We're not going to allow anyone to vote twice. So don't get that idea in your head. We have a system there that obviously is going to mark you as having voted in whatever location you're in. But that 9 days prior to every state and federal election allows people a lot of flexibility there to cast a ballot.
Which would be the first one, February 27?
Correct. Yep. So the presidential preference primary is going to be held on the 27th of February, which means early voting happens 9 days prior to that day. And we have our voting hours as well. Essentially every day we're going to be open all of those 9 days, including Saturdays and Sundays, from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. And then on Tuesday and Thursday, we have evening hours from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. So 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. on Tuesday, Thursday, to accommodate folks' schedules in the evening. And then the rest of the day, the rest of those weekdays and weekend hours is going to be 7 a.m. to 3 p.m.
And this is for the presidential preference primary on the 27th, the August primary, and the November general election, but not the May election.
Yeah, very good point. If the May election does not fall under that early voting collaborative agreement that we have with the local jurisdiction, so no early voting for the May election. Obviously, voters do have the ability to cast an absentee ballot. They can get a ballot by mail, request that, fill it out, send it back in. Or, of course, you can always vote in person on Election Day. That is always an option, continues to be an option, but no early voting in May.
And then finally, you had some donations for the holidays with your office.
Yeah, we're excited about that. We partnered with a couple of my friends, elected official offices, the treasurer's office and the water resources office, and our office partnered to make some donations to the Resilience House here in Holland. And Resilience is an amazing organization that basically defends and helps families that are victims of either domestic violence or sexual abuse, housing those in need of place to stay. And we put together several $100s worth of donations, really some cool stuff, new items, everything from games for kids to pots and pans for the kitchen, and donated that to Resilience. And I'll tell you, if you're looking for a place to support over the holiday season, that is a great organization and a great way to help those in need. So we were excited to do that.
If you have any questions about the County Clerk or Register of Deeds office, the phone number to call, 616-994-4531, 616-994-4531, or go online to myottawa.org. That's myottawa.org. Justin Roebuck, thank you very much. Have a pleasant holiday and look forward to chatting with you in January.
Sounds great, Gary. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Justin Roebuck on 99.7 and 1450 WHTC.